Today's date is July 31st, 2017. Hello and welcome to Hit the Books Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Holcomb.
And I'm Emery Saunders.
And we're here to give you the saucy deets on everything comics this week. Emery, what have you been reading?
Lately, I've been keeping up on the two different X-Men series that they have going on right now, Blue and Gold.
Mm-hmm.
Both very decently well-written. I've also been reading things like Hawkeye and America.
Oh, the one you're so fond of.
Funny. And Occupy Avengers, which...
How are you liking that one?
Occupy Avengers is actually one of the more interesting titles that I've read, mostly because it has a very political slant to their writing.
In a good way or a bad way?
I would say a good way.
Cool.
The first issue is starring Hawkeye, Clint Barton Hawkeye, to be more specific, since there are two now.
Really?
Yes.
How do you keep track of any of this?
Very, very carefully. Clint Barton Hawkeye has managed to, and this is post Civil War II, after having successfully killed the Hulk on what was basically live television, and being acquitted of murder because he was basically asked to by Bruce.
This isn't really a spoiler, folks. This happened a while ago, and everybody talked about it.
Oh yeah. He's decided to basically be as much of an incognito hero as possible, but it doesn't work. Everyone recognizes him wherever he goes. And he ends up basically trying to hide away in basically a Native American reservation. And he ends up happening upon some nefarious plot where he's basically there, like right place, right time, kind of helps save the day, but...
Is this kind of like a white savior type of thing?
Ish. He doesn't really do that much good because he's still an archer in an age of guns. With that being said, he's still an Avenger, and he still tries to do good for this Native American reservation that has something very akin to a Dakota Access Pipeline issue happening.
Gotcha.
And yeah, things just get more interesting from there, to be sure. I have a few other titles that I'm reading, but their names escape me currently. I will say this, though. America, the series... God, I really hate that they called it that. Like, I get it, that's the name of the character, but...
Get it?
It's like,
Get it?
It's America!
Get it?
Yeah, like, this is clearly what Marvel wants to portray as what America should be. A super powerful, from a utopian society, Latina lesbian.
Utopia.
Yes.
Without any kind of character conflict.
No, not even a little bit. And
Sounds thrilling.
Someone else write this. It's like, I get it. I do. They want to have a character out there that more people can identify with. But when you make a character that basically has no stakes, like they're not in danger of anything really, it just there's nothing to compel me or make me like care about what happens to them next, because I kind of already know they'll be fine. It hurts. But I have to see where it goes.
Does it crash spectacularly, or does it get better?
That's what I am hoping to find out.
All right.
Yeah, X-Men Blue and X-Men Gold. X-Men Blue specifically is a decent, let's take a team from the past and bring them to the current day type story. It's the original 5.
And I always get this switched out. The blue is the one with the old original X-Men, right?
Yes, they're the one with the original 5.
Gotcha.
Which is Cyclops, Jean Grey, Iceman, Beast, and Angel. X-Men Gold is the more eclectic, if you will, current day team.
With Old Man Logan and...
Yeah, which is a weird story all on its own. Old Man Logan, Shadowcat, I believe Magic is on that team, or no, maybe not Magic. No, she is. Magic, Nightcrawler, Storm, and Prestige, who is actually Rachel Gray, who I think was the Phoenix before, and then like different Marvel girl before. We like renaming her for some reason. I don't get it.
She's just a role player. we hire her out of free agency to fill a spot when we lose a little depth on the team.
Like, oh hey guys, I'm still here. I have decent powers, and I'm going to make you think of Jean Grey the whole time.
You want to do punt returns this year? You want to do punt returns? All right, you're punt returns now.
Oh, I'll catch the ball.
Oh, football season's so close, everybody.
Oh,
I'm so
yeah.
excited. Go Bengals.
Go Bengals, wearing your Blue Jackets hat?
Hey, Torts just got an extension. I'll
Huh?
have you know.
Well.
I had to celebrate that I'll have more entertaining Coach Cam to watch.
Yes, please, more of that. And also more Columbus hockey, because that's a thing.
Yeah, everybody loves Torts. Everybody loves Torts. You may not like playing against him, but you love watching him.
Pure entertainment.
So anything else?
I think that's all for me currently. How about you?
I've been playing catch up. As I told you, I have a huge backlog that I've been trying to work on. And since I'm usually broke, I've been going back to those issues to try to prevent myself from buying $100 of new comics to add to the pile. Boxed and boarded and framed as always. But I've been finishing up Batman Eternal and
Ooh.
Future's End from New 52. They were a weekly comic series during the 75th anniversary of Batman. I finally finished Batman Eternal. That was pretty cool. Ending was a little iffy, but it was clearly like a setup for an event. But it was pretty solid all the way through. Like, I never lost interest. There was maybe, out of 52 issues, there's gonna be one. I think 51 issues, but there's gonna be one or two in there that are like, didn't need that one. But most of them were pretty solid, and the artwork too. Like, the artwork was pretty solid, even though they were pushing it out every week. Future's End. Future's End, I actually think is a little better so far. I only got like 4 or 5 issues left. I think I gotta check it again. But Future's End, I'm really loving. Like, I just loved what they did with Batman Beyond, specifically Terry McGinnis and the New 52.
Fan favorite.
Before
Can't talk. Terry McGinnis.
Yeah, before another character had to take over. So I'm about to finish it off, and hopefully my eyes stay dry.
Hopefully. Don't cry.
And with that, let's get into the news. First up on the docket, we have Spider-Man Homecoming, which we have just seen.
Yeah,
so look out
we
for
did
a
just see
review
that.
pretty soon. I think it's safe to say we both loved it.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I was pretty
very
cynical.
enjoyable movie.
I thought
yeah.
it was being overhyped, kind of like, because I did not like Guardians Volume 2 very much. And everybody was saying it was even better than the first. And when I saw it, I was just like...
You definitely had your gripes with that movie.
So that put me in a bad mood for Spider-Man. And having seen it, all my doubts were completely washed away. Spider-Man was what they said it was. And Guardians 2, maybe not as much.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. It's like you definitely had your issues with the Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I had at least a couple issues with Spider-Man.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we'll get into that during the review.
Oh, yeah, we will.
Can't wait to hear what you say.
Yeah. With that being said, I did still enjoy the movie.
So anyway, our news item is Spider-Man Homecoming has outsold both of the Amazing Spider-Man movies, starring Andrew Garfield, and which probably means it also outsold the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, because I'm pretty sure the Spider-Man 3 was somewhere around like 400 million.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
and Spider-Man Homecoming worldwide gross at this point is at 650 million, and still going, still has plenty of weeks left. So I can see it getting to around Deadpool levels, which we looked up, which is about 750 million.
Yeah,
maybe even better.
It's getting up there. Interestingly enough, this is a movie that Rotten Tomatoes has, according to their ratings, I'm not sure if they've changed over like the last week or so, but they've put it on the same level as The Dark Knight.
Yeah. Well, that's the one thing with ratings. It's like I enjoyed these movies equally, but it's very clear that The Dark Knight is like a pillar of movie making. Spider-Man Homecoming is just a really fun, really cool movie.
Right.
So,
yeah, take those reviews for what you will.
Sure. It's one is Oscar winning and deservedly so, and the other is probably not going to get an Oscar, but is really fun and really good, and they did Spider-Man well. So,
oh yeah, they did.
Did I enjoy them both almost equally? Close enough. I'll give them that much credit, but I definitely would not say it's even close to what The Dark Knight represents for me.
Yeah.
I saw The Dark Knight in theaters 6 times, I think. 6 or 7 times, because I love that movie so much. It is almost 3 hours long. And I dragged everybody I could to see that movie.
That is, I think that might be like a full 24-hour day worth of watching that movie.
It was a lot of movie tickets. Like, I was even going to see it when it was in like the $2 theater, like a year later.
That being said, worth every penny.
Yeah. That IMAX scene where the semi flips. Oh, what I would give to see that in theaters again. That IMAX scene. Ooh. So anyway, Spider-Man is doing well. No big surprises there, I guess.
None.
But what's really interesting about it is the deal that Sony made for this movie.
Yeah.
You want to explain that?
Yeah. So, fun fact, a lot of people thought that, it's Sony and Marvel working together. They're going to maybe split the profits on this one because it's mostly Marvel doing the work. And that's where most people would be wrong. What happened in this deal was that Sony themselves paid merely basically a one-time production fee to Marvel for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow, I don't know how they wrote this out.
Not only for this movie, but for the rights to use them in Civil War and going forward, in addition to his own movie.
Yes. Yeah, with that, so, Marvel now has the rights to use this character, much to the enjoyment of every Marvel fan.
And DC fan.
And DC fan, people who enjoy these movies. What's surprising is that all of the money that you just said that they made in the box office, all of it goes to Sony. All of it.
That is a lot of profit going into Sony's pocket for essentially nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And boy, did they remind you in those credits. Sony, you're welcome.
See, they said be moved under Sony in the after the movie credits. It should have said you're welcome. Let's be honest.
Yeah. And so what does Marvel get out of this other than the use of Spider-Man?
Well,
do they get any profit?
They retain a couple of things. One, the rights to all of the merchandising profits, which
are probably significant.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, Spider-Man is the highest selling toy icon there is.
Wow, really?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he even outsells Batman in toys.
That's surprising.
Yeah.
Batman's got all the gadgets.
Yeah, he does. With Spider-Man, he's got all that web, that red and blue. You can buy like silly spray, or like, is it silly spray?
Oh, silly string. I love those little
silly
launchers.
string. That's what it is. Yeah,
those launchers they had when we were kids.
It's like, yeah, you can be Spider-Man.
I always wanted one so bad, but my mom went and get it for me.
Yeah.
For a good reason, probably.
Oh, yeah, for very good reason. It gets everywhere. Marvel actually gets to keep the money for any profits from any kind of toy related to Spider-Man now.
Wow.
Yeah.
But not the video games that Sony makes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the money for the video games goes to Sony.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
Man, Sony really made out with that deal.
That's true.
So looking at the stats here.
Yeah.
Spider-Man Homecoming, domestic total about 300 million, worldwide about 650 million at this point, and its budget was 175 million. So that is a hell of a lot of profit for Sony to just pocket.
Yeah.
For what is essentially Marvel Studios' work.
Yeah.
Disney's work. Man, what a deal.
With that being said, Marvel can't afford it.
Yeah. I'm sure they're not crying at all.
Not even a little bit.
I mean,
I think the only thing that I'm waiting for at this point is for Fox to come along and do the same thing.
Yeah, I don't think Fox is going to let go anytime soon, though.
No, one day. I have hope, damn it.
Next up, our second topic of the news. Another comic book movie in theaters.
Yeah,
but not doing so well.
Oh, yeah, we have good news and bad news. Spider-Man did good.
Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets is bombing hard. Real hard. To give you perspective, if they had not spent too much, they would be doing pretty well. Currently, worldwide, their gross is about $60 million, with, probably a few more weeks to go.
That's
based on its success.
Yeah, that's a reasonable amount for a movie with, like, any kind of unknown, like, source material.
However, when you look at the production budget, which is more than Spider-Man Homecoming, a tough to swallow $177.2 million.
Oh, my God. That's death. That is box office death.
Far more than double of its current gross earnings. Not net, gross earnings.
God, that hurts.
That's not including taxes and all of these things. I doubt there's going to be a second Valerian, and I'm pretty sure no one is getting a royalty check from this movie.
Most likely not, unless somehow this movie finds its footing in DVD sales.
For those not familiar, Valerian is kind of like a space opera, tour de force from France, I believe.
Yes.
That came out in the 60s and has had spotty volumes throughout the decades.
Yeah. There have been volumes here and there, but it's mostly, at least for anyone who's into comics and from America, it's a niche title.
Yeah, it's I had never heard of it until the movie trailer came out. I don't know about you, but...
Yeah, I had no idea.
We're going to see it and render our own opinions, but I'm a little discouraged seeing the reviews are hovering around 50% for basically every site.
Yeah.
So it's not really doing well critically, and it's definitely not doing well at the box office. And apparently their fan base is pretty strong, but I'm guessing there's not many of them.
Yeah, I think the biggest selling point that this movie had was that the director was the same director who made The Fifth Element. Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Oh well. So anyway, this movie is not doing well. We're going to see it at some point in the near future, even though we don't want to. But first, we're trying to get ourselves a little familiar with the comic book source material. So we're gonna pick up a few volumes if we can find them and track them down.
Yeah,
and give those a read before we go into a theater and check it out. So, viewers, spend your money on this ticket at your own peril, at least until we can tell you not to do so. But make your own decision. We'll see how it does in the end, but it does not look encouraging.
No, it does not.
Our final piece of news. The Superman stash from hell.
The stash of steel.
Now, for those not aware, Justice League has needed some reshoots, and because of some issues Director Snyder is dealing with, Joss Whedon has come in to do the reshoots. However, this has caused some problems for some of the actors that did not anticipate reshoots, specifically Henry Cavill, that plays the role of Superman. No secret, he's going to be in the movie. But there's a problem. The movie Henry Cavill is currently filming, the new Mission Impossible movie, he is sporting a very trendy, bushy mustache. However, it is not a wig. It is all natural. And the Mission Impossible Studios do not want to allow him to shave it or wear a wig. So, he must go to these reshoots for Justice League sporting a mustache and hopefully a mullet. Because that's what we all want. The return of Superman in his full mullet glory. Sporting a mustache.
I'm sorry, I just imagine like the most redneck Superman you've ever seen in your life.
Carrying a 40 and a white beater.
40 wife beater that for some reason still has the symbol of the House of L on it.
Etched in the knitting. It's a beer stain. But the reason this is news is because, just to add to the many digital issues with this Justice League movie, they are having a lot of trouble editing out this mustache. Apparently, it is a daunting task for this digital studio, which I have never had confidence in the first place, based on how Cyborg looks.
Yeah.
And how BVS often looked.
The thing that really perplexes me about this is that they know what his face looks like. They've had to digitally render his face before in Man of Steel.
Yeah.
I don't
and
know.
BVS.
Yeah. I don't know why they can't just maybe take that 3D model and make it move. Or at least make it move somewhat believably, I guess.
Now, to be fair, this seems extremely petty of the production staff for Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
I see no reason why you couldn't just have a mustache merkin.
I mean, there are ways of making a mustache look believable on a person. They do it all the time.
And that would be far cheaper than what WB has to pay to have these digital reshoots.
Right.
Man, and again, that's going to be another digital thing that could potentially just look terrible on the screen. So
they have their work cut out for them.
You know,
this
isn't that Disney, youth animation technology they're using. This is WB cover everything in shadows to hide the flaws and hope for the best.
Right. Marvel's able to make a 60-something-year-old Michael Douglas look like a 50-something-year-old Michael Douglas.
Man, that's a feat.
Yeah. They're able to make
Kurt Russell,
a
Johnny Depp.
Yeah. They're able to make him look really, really surprisingly young.
Mm-hmm.
DC, I do not have faith in them on this. To take out a mustache.
It's probably not. They need all the time they can get to make Cyborg look palatable.
Yeah,
I can't imagine having this mustache problem, driving back even more production time on reshoots nonetheless. This movie is due in November.
Yeah.
We have 3 months left, and they are still doing this.
Yeah,
they are still reshooting. They are still digitally changing things.
They still have to, and I'm hope that they're doing this. I'm still
What
hoping
a
that
train
they're
wreck, man.
polishing Cyborg.
I hope this movie's good, because it's gonna crush my soul. After Wonder Woman gave me so much hope. And Aquaman looks cool.
Yeah,
Flash, I'm growing on Flash the more I see of him, even though his costume's a little goofy. I like the TV costume more than I like the movie costume look, but I don't know. Maybe I'll like it more in the movie.
Yeah, they'll have to explain the costume.
But Cyborg just looks so bad. That digital animated costume.
Yeah, my hope is that they have a lot of Steppenwolf. That is my greatest hope, that Steppenwolf...
And he's a competent villain.
Yeah.
I hope he's not just walking around throwing axes, I'm here.
Yeah, from what it looks like, he's less interested in hurting the Justice League and more just into breaking the Earth itself. So,
because, reasons.
Right. Is added to the collection, says... Not Doomsday. Doomsday, that's the thing that killed him last time. Darkseid. Which I have to say it that way every time I see his name.
Thanos Sr.
You're never going to get my gauntlet, Dad.
I do not need a gauntlet with my Omega beams.
One day I will have the anti-life equation. And then I will end the unit. Superman, what are you doing?
No, stop that.
Superman,
nope,
stop.
Stop it.
Superman!
Darkseid would be very successful if he didn't come to Earth ever. he could achieve all his goals if he never just went to Earth. If he just went and got the equation and did what he wanted.
Oh, yeah.
But he's always got to go, to Superman and start poking him with a stick and telling him all his plans,
This is my plan, Superman, that you totally won't be able to stop. Superman, what are you doing?
At least
Superman,
Thanos
stop.
is fighting celestial beings,
Oh, yeah.
Darkseid just goes to Earth to fight this one specific guy for no reason.
There's always something with Earth, which, I get it. I do. We have to be able to relate to this story somehow.
Yeah.
But Superman, you're actively poking a planet that has Superman on it.
Maybe we should just tell Superman to go to Mars or something.
Right. Maybe we could have told his people to terraform that planet.
Yeah, wouldn't that be easier?
It's it's right over there, guys.
Yeah.
It's literally right over there.
And with the lighter gravity, you can jump even higher.
Yeah, and still have yellow sun.
Yeah.
You'd just be
So
better
win-win.
on that planet. You might have an issue with water. You can, with terraforming. Terraforming might help with that, I think.
I mean, his planet didn't look all that great to begin with, so.
Yeah, here's the thing that always tripped me out. With Superman and his Kryptonian nefarious, kind of related people, since in this world they're all coming from the same sets of DNA, weirdly.
Yeah.
Why do they decide to turn this somewhat lush, very, very aqua-filled planet into their shitty, looking like it's literally all covered in bone and the remains of the dead type planet?
How about some nice steel spires and a lot of dirt? That's my kind of planet. Why? Did you just put your DNA into this planet without?
Why would you actively make a planet
that you want to occupy?
That you want to occupy that actually gives you powers on its own into your shitty planet that doesn't give you powers.
And will probably self-destruct at some point.
Right.
Because Fuck your planet. Oh, well. With that, my friends,
Yep.
we end the news.
So, Chris, what books are we hitting up this week?
Well, Emery, I thought you'd never ask. Here, coming to our local comic book shops, we have plenty of good new books for you. From Dynamite Entertainment, we have Kiss number 10 and a whole lot of variant covers that we don't care about. So if you like variant covers, go to Dynamite.
Yeah, that's apparently all they've got.
From Marvel Comics, we have all new Guardians of the Galaxy number 7. We have Avengers number 10. We have Black Bolt number 4. We have
Black Bolt. They're really pushing that one with the show coming out.
I think that show's going to be terrible. I don't know. That's just my instinct. We'll see, though. Maybe it'll be great. I'll be wrong.
Let's hope.
They got the guy from Game of Thrones and a show I really liked, Misfits, which is on Hulu.
Oh,
A British show about these kids that are on community service, essentially.
Yeah.
Get struck by some weird lightning, like a bunch of other people, and get superpowers, and then they're just basically shitheads and do a bunch of stupid stuff with it.
What real people would do with powers.
Pretty much. Next up, we have Champions, number 11. We have Generations, Banner Hulk and Totally Awesome Hulk, number 1. We have Hawkeye, number 9. We have Iron Fist, number 6. We have Jessica Jones, number 11. Really pushing the Netflix stuff this week. We have Marvel Universe Avengers, Ultron Revolution, number 12. Could we get a longer title? We have Nick Fury, number 5. We have Spider-Man, number 19. We have Spider-Man Deadpool, number 20. We have Star Wars Darth Vader, number 4. We have Star Wars Rogue One, number 5. The Unstoppable Wasp, number 8. Thor Ragnarok Prelude, number 3, for the upcoming movie. And X-Men Gold, number 9. Your boys.
Yeah, boy.
From IDW Publishing, we have Archangel number 5. We have Hasbro Heroes Sourcebook number 2, because that's what we all need.
Yeah. More Hasbro.
A toy advertisement. And we have The X-Files Origins 2, Dog Days of Summer number 2. Because we can't have enough 2s. DC Comics, we have Bane Conquest number 4. We have Batman number 28. We have Cyborg number 15. We have DC Comics Bombshells number 32. We have Deathstroke number 22. We have Green Arrow number 28. We have Green Lanterns number 28. We have Injustice 2 number 7. We have Justice League number 26. We have New Gods Special number 1. We have Nightwing getting fucked up on the cover like he always is because DC wants to murder Dick Grayson. Nightwing number 26. I swear, every week he's just getting fucked up by somebody.
Yeah, what is the deal with that?
This one we got Huntress, it looks like, shooting a bunch of arrows into his chest. Why? Quit trying to kill Dick Grayson.
Because we're trying to push Damian.
John, I'm talking to you. Jeff needs to knock it off.
Let Nightwing be. He's great.
Next up, we have Superman number 28. And that wraps up our DC books. From Titan Books. I'm going to include Titan now because I like their Assassin's Creed comics.
Ooh.
From Titan Books, we have Assassin's Creed number 6 and variants. So that was easy. From Image Comics, I Like What You Do, we have East of West number 34. We have
nice.
Extremity number 6. Sorry,
I was saying, oh, nice.
yeah. From we got Hadrian's Wall number 8. We have Rocket Girl, number 8. We have Samaritan Veritas, number 3. We have Sex Criminals, number 20, which is an hilarious comic. I think I stopped around like issue 12, and I think it started getting a little bit more dark and serious, but those first few issues were pretty hilarious. Next, we have Stray Bullets, Sunshine and Roses, number 26. And finally, we have The Walking Dead, number 170, which has been rumored to be coming to an end around number 200. Much like another beloved comic from Image. From Boom Studios, we have Giant Days, number 29. We have Adventure Time regular show, number 1. We have The Amory Wars. Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star 4, number 5. Because, again, we couldn't have a more complicated, mundane title to alienate our potential customers.
Yeah.
And we have The Woods, number 34, which kind of looks pretty cool. Might check it out. And from Dark Horse, they have Predators Hunters, number 4. And I think that pretty much wraps up. Oh, nope. From Vertigo, we have Ever After from the Pages of Fables, number 12. Savage Things, number 6. Shade, the Changing Girl, number 11, which is always pretty good. And that will wrap up our comic book releases for the week. If you want to check out these lists, you can go to freshcomics.us. That's who we use. We'd like to make our own source, but we won't have a website for another week or two. While we wait for our URL to get released.
So it's coming soon.
And that is everything coming to your local comic book shops.
Support your local comic book shops.
And digital devices this week. Now it's time to hand out the prestigious, nay, life-changing, award of Cover of the Week and Variant Cover of the Week, as chosen by your Hit the Books podcast hosts.
Oh, yeah. What do we got?
So, for our regular Cover of the Week, we give a shout-out to David Mack for his artwork on Jessica Jones, number 11. And if you're watching our YouTube channel, you can see the image right there. It's just really cool-looking kind of watercolor style.
Got a classic Alias Comics, or not Alias Comics, but the Alias Investigations feel.
Sure, it reminds me a lot of the Sandman comics, just that kind of color and art style.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool, very cool. So, definitely check that out. And, no, it says... Nope. It says yourself. I thought that said Yusef. So, definitely pick that one up and add it to your wall. Frame it, bag and board it, show it off. Our variant cover of the week.
Variant cover of the week. What do we got here?
Justice League number 26. Illustrated by Yannick Paquette. It might be Paquette. It might be Paquetti. Depends on how Italian you consider yourself.
I'll go with Paquette.
Yeah. We'll go French with it. But it's a pretty cool art style. It kind of has that kind of Red Sun kind of vibe to it. Although I don't think that's what they were intending. That's certainly how it kind of hits me.
Yeah. I do have to say, like, I really enjoy that vibe. I really enjoy that story, honestly.
It's great. And it kind of looks like the old like circus posters almost.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty cool. As a Wonder Woman standing up with her hands on her fists on her hip with Batman and Superman to her left and right, and then the other Justice League members on the bottom. It's pretty cool. And the longer you look at it, the more stuff you see in the background there. It's pretty neat. It's a really clever design. So, shout out to Yannick Paquette for your variant cover of the week. And for our new friends out there, this is the part of the show where we each discuss a topic of our choosing about the world of comics. Emery, what is your topic?
My topic this week is going to be, honestly, somewhat controversial.
Uh-oh. Get ready for the comment section.
Yep. So as you know, I am one for reading X-Men comics.
You don't say.
Oh no, I do say. I do say quite often. Along with that, there is something that I've noticed, actually not just in this comic, but there is, I don't want to say it's a trend, but it seems like it might have the lookings of a trend.
A good trend?
I'll let you be the judge of that.
Oh, saucy.
So, one of the things that I've noticed in X-Men Gold in particular is there's a gender bending / role reversal that I have specifically noticed in the most recent issue of X-Men Gold.
How so?
Well, from what I have seen, like throughout that issue, and the more I look at that, the more I look at the 7 issues preceding it, they've definitely made Shadowcat, who is now the leader of the X-Men, to be noticeably more masculine in appearance and just basically the stances that she has, like physically, whenever they draw her as a character. Who, if I'm not mistaken, the penciler for the
so
series...
they just kind of draw her more physically imposing? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah, they've made her...
Like to an unrealistic extent, or just in a kind of obvious but fleeting extent?
I think they've just made it a bit more obvious what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And up to a point, it makes sense. She's an X-Man. She has had ninja...
She's one of the X-Mans.
Yeah. She's one of the X-Mans. And she's had ninja training. She's had danger room training. She's been a superhero for a long time. So clearly she should be, like, kind of ripped, right? She should be somewhat muscular, right?
I can see that.
Yeah. It makes sense that they would do that with that character. In a lot of ways, I'm kind of surprised it took them this long. But one of the things that made that stand out more was what they've been doing with specifically characters like Colossus, Nightcrawler, and in one or two ways, Wolverine. In the comic X-Men Gold so far, they've basically set up situations where all of the characters get their time to shine, but for some reason recently there have been characters who have been basically rendered seemingly useless. Specifically, there's a panel in the newest one where they show Colossus, practically 400 pounds of Russian manly muscle, to be someone who is in need of rescuing, specifically by Shadowcat, the leader.
From what?
Well, there's a situation going on. I don't want to spoil anything for those of you who are reading it, but there's a situation that has seemingly escalated with a new Brotherhood of Mutants, a new, I think it's, his name's Executioner, a guy who's basically trying to target and take out mutants with guns. I think there's like maybe a couple of other things that they're dealing with, but I think in that issue specifically, Colossus was being held captive along with, I think Nightcrawler was there. I'd have to go back and read it again.
Okay.
So yeah.
What in particular makes this an issue for you? Because superheroes save each other all the time.
That's true. The superheroes saving
just
each other.
Way it happens. That's kind of silly, or
it is. It's the way that it happens. The thing with Colossus needing to be rescued by Kitty Pryde, like, I have no problem with a woman rescuing a man, but a woman who's had the same training as that man that he's going in to rescue. For some reason, she, in this issue, has been made to look like the one who's having to do everything while a bunch of men who have regularly themselves gotten themselves out of these situations before is being like rendered useless. It's really weird. Also, I'm not sure whether or not this might be something that I'm like looking for or picking out, but I think there are some places where it just seems like Shadowcat is being drawn in a very masculine way. I'm not sure if that's something that the artist, I think is Arden Siaf.
So, sorry, not to cut you off.
Oh, yeah.
Just to get the heart of the issue, you're kind of implying that you think that Marvel, with probably good reason for suspecting this, is more or less pushing, this kind of agenda down your throat that, hey, look what we're doing. Why don't you pat us on the back? We're making the woman do the male role and rescuing the worthless, helpless male, damsel in distress, essentially.
Right.
So that's what you're reading into it.
Yeah. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. But
do you think this is just another way of, pat us on the back, we're doing what you like? Or do you think there's actual story context for it?
Honestly, it comes off as a way of like patting themselves on the back for looking progressive.
And I have no context for this, so
yeah,
I haven't read it.
There are honestly instances and other issues of comics that Marvel's been putting out where, and I haven't really noticed this until like I took a look back at it. I think now, more than ever, Marvel has, I hate to say it, but they've been basically forcing diversity into their comics, which I would understand if these were original characters.
As we often harp on.
Yeah, we harp on that a lot.
There's nothing wrong with diversity and, genders or races or religions or whatever.
Right.
But you should do it with original characters, not substitute existing characters and borrow their mantle in order to push an agenda.
Right.
Instead of doing the work to create interesting new comic characters that people can look up to.
Yeah, I think the biggest tragedy has been what they did to X-23, honestly.
What did they do to her?
They turned her into Wolverine instead of standing...
Made her all new Wolverine?
Yeah, instead of letting her stand on her own.
And then made Lady Thor, even though we already have a Lady Thor?
Yeah.
Made Falcon Captain America, because we need diversity.
Yeah.
But not in an original way, in a way that rips off the
right
non-diverse archetype.
Like, I have no problem with diversity. I have a problem with poorly written diversity. That is, I think, my biggest issue. And
no pun intended.
No pun intended yet. I think the thing that I'm seeing with this is like there's an agenda that I think might be being forced, and I wouldn't have as much of a problem with it as I do if these comics were just written well.
Yeah,
I have no problem with any of the many now female versions of these pre-established male characters.
I mean, like, say Colossus was getting attacked by Magneto.
Right.
Colossus is made out of metal.
Yeah. It would make sense for Shadowcat to go in and, put her hand straight into Magneto's head.
But from what I'm gathering, it's more of a, he could easily get out of this situation by himself.
Right.
But because we want to show this empowered female character in this way, in order to get some pats on the back from our fans and community on the internet, we're going to make Colossus a useless idiot and
Right. Like there are plenty of ways that you could be showcasing. I mean, she's basically the female version of Vision, but without like the head beam.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot of this in comics and art culture in general.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's no secret that most art culture, whether it's literature, whether it's, painting, whether it's comic books, music, it tends to lean towards a more progressive stance. Not always because they support that progressive stance or because they feel very strong about that progressive stance, but because they kind of want the pats on the back, they want the positive approval that's going to boost their comic sales, and have people will pay more attention to them when they're doing the right thing, and people won't boycott them when they do something that could be perceived as a microaggression or something like that,
Right.
So I'm sure this is just another one of many moves that have been made by particularly the big comic companies, DC and Marvel, and their extended branches, in order to make sure that they don't get some kind of negative press on Reddit or something, and
right.
that they get pat on the back every time they release a comic where they do something like this. And I have no context for this. Playing devil's advocate, you could be reading way too much into it just because of your impressions of Marvel at this time with comics like America, for example.
Right. It's entirely possible that I'm reading it wrong.
Mm-hmm. But I think Marvel at this time has kind of earned that kind of cynical evaluation.
Yeah.
Because they have been lazy with their character creation. They have been lazy with their addressing of introducing new diverse characters, and
they've been lazy with just writing these characters in general, and specifically with the lack of struggle,
for sure. And DC is, in the past, not too much presently, but in the past has been very guilty of this as well. Like, I still remember when they had I don't think it was an Elseworlds comic, but it was something in a different universe.
Yeah.
But they didn't mention that in the press releases. But basically, they made, I believe, Kyle Rayner, an alternate version of Kyle Rayner, homosexual, and have a boyfriend. Like, the first page you see of him out of uniform, he's making out with his husband, I think, on a train or something. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the way DC made sure it got published everywhere, particularly without mentioning that this is an alternate universe, that this is not the mainstream continuum,
right,
and just relentlessly patted themselves on the back for creating the first homosexual, Green Lantern. Like, no, you didn't. You created an alternate form of an existing Green Lantern so that you could get approval and applause from your internet SJW community,
Right. And wait, don't they have Alan Scott?
Oh, maybe it was alternate form of Alan Scott.
Maybe.
Because he was blonde. I remember that. So maybe,
yeah, that's Alan Scott.
But it was an alternate universe version of him. And he was young. He wasn't the old, 50s Alan Scott. He was like a young Green Lantern from an alternate universe.
Young new gay.
Yeah. I wish I could remember what it was called. It was a good comic series, don't get me wrong, but just the way DC went about it, there was good writing in the story. It wasn't like they were being lazy, but they were exploiting a kind of movement that was going on with the gay marriage movement that was being forced into the Supreme Court at the time.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. It's great that homosexuals can get married and bisexual people can get married without having to worry about discrimination and things like that.
Actually, there was a line of X-Men comics that actually handled celebrating that as a new thing very well. There's a long-standing homosexual X-Man / Alpha Flight member called Northstar, who this was years ago. They had basically around the time when gay marriage was finally officially a right, people can get married whether or not they're gay or straight now.
Yeah.
they had basically kind of subtly worked into like, oh, in the background is like North Star's been dating this guy for a while, and they end up finally being able to get married, and there's a wedding. Like he literally just has a wedding.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was like they subtly worked that in, and that was fine. It was like, yeah, we can do that now. That's great. That's fine. But when you like do something like what they did with Alan Scott and just like Elseworlds, kind of, he's gay now, and look at him.
Yeah.
Celebrate this character that we changed for you.
And it just came off so much as just a plea for attention, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it was on CNN and like just all these like mainstream news stations, like as if it mattered, you know? And suddenly their comics had more attention, and suddenly, you know, people were like, well, somebody on Fox News that said this is offensive, so I better go buy it and support it. It was such a blatant appeal to sell more comics and get some pats on the backs from, you know, their community, you know.
Yeah.
I highly doubt the average Fox watcher, you know, Fox News network, cable network watcher is going to the comic book store and purchasing these comics every week, you know.
Yeah. God, it just
maybe I'm making an assumption, but that's usually not the market
right
for artistic endeavors usually.
Yeah, it is like I have no problem with, again, homosexual characters, trans characters, anything like that. Just as long as they're written well, and that this isn't a character that you're changing to that for the sake of getting more views, because it's like it's you're using it for attention as opposed to just making that a thing. Like DC did that with Alan Scott Green Lantern. Marvel did that with Iceman.
Yeah, they did that pretty recently, right?
Yeah.
But that's the official universe, right?
Yeah, they made that official, like... And the way that they did that was pretty ham-fisted. They used the Iceman from the 60s that was pulled to the current day to basically have it revealed to Jean Grey, who's haphazardly reading her mind, as like, oh, he's actually gay. Like, he's actually been gay this whole time.
Yeah.
And
now, is this the Iceman from X-Men Blue?
Yes.
So the original 5 X-Men?
Yes.
Cool.
And what they've done with that is, before they split them off into blue and gold, he was basically outed by Jean Grey on accident, and now he's basically having to deal with this new part of his identity that he hasn't fully accepted yet.
Yeah.
And
which is cool, because it's an X-Men comic, especially, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
not only does he have to deal with being a mutant, now he has to deal with people knowing that he's homosexual and any kind of stigmas that might raise with his friends and family and anybody else.
Right, the stigmas that he himself is having to deal with, like, personally, like, that he's applied to himself.
Yeah, sure.
It's an interesting way to do it, but I just wish they had done that with, again, we're going to harp on this every time, a new character.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I don't know why people are, specifically creators, are so scared to just tackle new characters, you know?
Right.
But and sometimes this backfires on them. One specific example I thought of and looked up to make sure I wasn't remembering it wrong was when they rebooted Batgirl and they kind of gave her a new design, and she moved to the suburbs for reasons to fight crime in the suburbs, because, you know, the suburbs are just raging with crime. But she's got this new, you know, bright purple outfit that's more kind of kid-friendly and kind of fun. And I didn't like it because there's some issues in the first issue with how they kind of handle her new persona.
Yeah.
Whereas before she was very mature, very skilled, very tactical, very talented, you know, in martial arts, and just she was just an awesome character to read. Like, I loved that run up until they did the whole reboot. And I
Yeah.
did like the artwork. Like, I bought the variant cover for that first issue of the reboot because I thought it was cool looking, you know. But then I read it, and it just, they took so much depth away from her. And then a few issues later, I think, again, trying to kind of fish for that new pat on the back, you know, this is going to make headlines and sell this comic.
Yeah.
They introduced a transgender character, but where they made their misstep is they made this transgender character a villain. And apparently, the only way you're allowed to introduce diversity is in a positive light, because apparently nobody can be anything but white if you are a villain. White and male. Occasionally female, you get away with it.
Yeah.
But apparently, if, you know, you can have transgender characters and get pats on the back for it, but they can't be anything other than a hero and a role model. So we have this transgender character who is flagged as an imposter of Batgirl and going around basically doing crimes dressed as like a glitter covered Batgirl. Again, you can see the threads here where they thought they were going to get these great headlines for this cool, stylish transgender character.
Yeah.
But they forgot that, hey, if you make them a bad role model, the community is not going to be so happy. Just to look it up real fast, this character's name is Dagger Type. And I remember seeing this cover, you know, and it's just kind of like this, you know, someone looking like Batgirl like this in like a gold glitter outfit, you know.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, well, I can kind of see where they're going with that one. Just kind of passed it by. But then it was all over the news initially, you know, before it was released, all over the news, not only just comic book sites and like IGNs and that sort of thing, but, you know, big time news channels. You know, DC about to introduce a new transgender character in the superhero world, blah, blah, blah. Then the day it came out and people read it, people were pissed and just all over the internet, all over news networks, just complaining and raging because this transgender character was kind of a stereotype and was a villain, not a role model, not a glowing, super heroic, super successful role model that sees no opposition, you know?
Right.
So every once in a while these companies do this to the point where it kind of blows up in their face. And
Yeah.
I think after that DC really learned their lesson that, hey, we should probably tone this stuff down, because after that happened and after that they had that huge blowback with that transgender villain.
Yeah.
Which they are perfectly entitled to do, you know.
It's their company.
It's their creative right. If that makes sense for their story, let them write a transgender villain. You can have transgender heroes just as much as you can have a transgender villain, you know.
I think I kind of see where they were going with that, just like in the creative sense.
Yeah.
It's like everything that's good about Batman is basically centered in their villains.
Yeah.
So why not make a really memorable character
Who's a
that's-
villain for Batgirl?
Yeah,
I can see.
villain for Batgirl, transgender. Like, this will be like this new, exciting, interesting character. Like, people love the Joker, Harley Quinn,
Mm-hmm.
Riddler, not so much.
Yeah.
It's
I
like-
love Riddler. I don't
Yeah.
care what people think.
Yeah, I mean,
He's
one
probably
of
my
favorite.
second favorite. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's up there.
but I could see where they were going with that. But honestly, I kind of want to read it myself to see what the big deal is.
Yeah, I think I went back and read it after the controversy, and I mean, it was kind of a stereotype. It was kind of silly because it was in the suburbs and they're committing these very minor crimes, you know, while dressed as a golden glitter Batgirl, you know. But it was just so ridiculous on all sides, you know. DC very obviously trying to force this into their narrative to, maybe you're right, maybe they were just trying to create a memorable, iconic villain with a new kind of style and introducing a new type of character.
Right.
But they couldn't have predicted that, you know, the
Like-
transgender community and people that support the transgender community, like ourselves,
Right.
we're going to blow up about it because they made it a villain with a few stereotypes and a little like over the top, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, everybody in that circle just, suffered. The people that complained about it were just kind of hypocritical because they're demanding these, diverse new characters like we were saying.
Yeah.
But then when it's a villain, they can't take it, It's
Yeah.
it's not acceptable unless they're a perfect, pristine, role model for all the boys and girls to aspire to, And I get the argument that when homosexuals and transgender people are represented, especially in older media, pre-2000 media, they're usually portrayed in a kind of demeaning and maybe not villainous, but certainly a negative fashion.
Yeah.
So I can see where they're going with that. So there is some hypocrisy there, but I can totally sympathize with what they're saying. But on DC's end, they had nothing to work with. I mean, they tried, but they did exactly what we're saying you should not do,
Yeah.
Not only did they adapt an established character and make it into a new character that was diverse,
Yeah.
but they did it in a villainous fashion that people don't want to represent in a way that's a little bit offensive, just because of the stereotypes it portrays. And it just blew up in their face. And ever since that moment, I have not read a single DC comic. And I read a lot of DC comics. I have not read a single DC comic that gave me that impression.
Yeah.
But it seems like Marvel hasn't had that kind of blow up in your face moment yet.
Not yet. I think it might be coming soon.
Yeah. So, I mean, it only takes one time, and then you see your comic sales drop as people, get angry and
like they're gonna stop buying if like things like this keep happening.
Mm-hmm. So, did you have anything else to add to that topic?
Apart from my usual plug, make original, interesting characters,
please.
Please. I think the
diversity is great, but it's better when they're original.
Yeah. I think my biggest thing on that whole thing is just make sure the writing makes sense. That's all I want is for the writing to make sense.
Yeah, everybody wants to be patted on the back a little bit. I get it. If you think you're gonna make this big moving statement, fine. That go for it, but do it in a tactful, mature way.
Yeah, it's like tactful, mature.
You don't need to send press releases before the book's even out,
right?
Advertising that you're doing this great thing that nobody's done yet.
Right? Just I just want a good story.
Yeah, for sure.
That's all I want. But yeah, that's all I got.
Well, I think it's time to introduce my topic. Mine will be a little bit more fun, a little less stressful, hopefully.
Yay! What do we got?
So, I thought after seeing Spider-Man Homecoming and still having all these Marvel movies fresh in our mind for the Marvel Universe, why don't we name our top 5 and bottom 5 Marvel Universe movies for each of us?
Ooh.
So I'll go first with my bottom 5.
All right.
You might understand what's coming based on the conversations we usually have during these movies.
Oh, yeah.
At the very, very bottom of the list, for me, is most likely... Oh, man, it's hard. Iron Man 3.
Man.
And I know you disagree with this, but that entire third act and the inconsistency that movie has with the rest of the movies in the universe caused me so much grief. It's, Robert Downey Jr. is always great, and I liked what they did with the kind of PTSD thing but then they just kind of wash it over and nobody remembers it. And then,
right.
Was it Ben Kingsley that played the faux Mandarin?
Yes.
Like, I love Ben Kingsley, and I loved how in the advertising they didn't spoil the twist, and then you went in there, fully expecting Ben Kingsley to
just be the Mandarin.
Which is ironic because people were so angry about him being the Mandarin, and then it turned out to be an even whiter guy. Which is so stupid.
Oh, yeah, that makes me chuckle every time.
Not only do we have a white Asian one, or ancient one, but we also is apparently versed in these ancient Eastern Asian traditions. But we also have the faux Ben Kingsley Mandarin replaced by the corporate rich white dude Mandarin.
It hurts.
But that movie just had so many problems, and Pepper Potts was terrible in that movie. And hearing the stories about how much money she was demanding after that, it was so ridiculous.
And
there's something we must discuss in their Spider-Man review relating to this.
Oh, yes, we will.
But Iron Man 3 for me was it was too much, and everything that they tried to do with that movie got completely forgotten about in Civil War. Excuse me, in Civil War and all the following movies.
Yeah.
For example, at the end of the movie, spoilers for a 5-year-old movie or whatever, Iron Man, based on his experience, destroys all his robots, decides it's too dangerous to have all these weapons that can be basically hijacked, much like they were in Iron Man 2.
Right.
This seems to be a consistent pattern. And he gets the shrapnel removed from his chest so he can take out the little generator, and says he's retiring more or less because he can't handle it anymore. He needs to take a break, whatever. And then immediately after they say that, on the screen, Iron Man will return. You just contradicted everything you just did and said. And then, sure as fuck, he has those fucking robots again. He has his little robot army deploying in all the movies after that, like he never dismantled them.
The funniest thing about that movie, apart from it being Shane Black's another version of Lethal Weapon 2, at the end credits, like all the way after the end credits, there's a scene that basically makes that entire movie a story that Iron Man made up while talking to the Hulk on the couch.
Yeah. It was just so ridiculous,
So, like, all of that could just have been bullshit.
Yeah, and that's a bummer because I love Iron Man in most of the movies. I loved Iron Man 1 is going to be on my top 5 list. Spoiler warning.
Oh, yeah, easily.
But 3 is just so bad and inconsistent and long, too. That movie just never ended. It just kept going, man. That was a long movie.
That movie looked like it had several endings that happened just in the middle of the movie.
Mm-hmm. My second worst movie, Iron Man 2. No big surprise there. I think most people would probably put that as the worst one of the DCU.
MCU.
Marvel U.
Yeah, Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
But it was just so goofy. I don't know. And I wish they would have kept Terrence Howard because he looked like an imposing military guy who's done a push-up in his life, Who's the guy they replaced him with? I always forget his name.
Don Cheadle.
Don Cheadle, thank you.
Don
Cheadle, he's a fine actor, but he does not look like a military officer. I have been in the military, and even the ones that are out of shape are usually fat. They don't look like they've been starved their entire life, They look like they've done a pull-up or a push-up once or twice in their life,
Right.
Don Cheadle does not fit the archetype. He doesn't carry himself like the archetype. He doesn't speak like a military officer, Nothing he does is reminiscent of an Air Force officer, a senior Air Force officer at that,
He seems just like a civilian who just happens to have been an Air Force officer at one point.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know the backstory. Maybe Terrence Howard, supposedly he was demanding too much money, but seeing how much the others get paid and what happened in Spider-Man Homecoming, I'm guessing there must have been more to the story. Maybe he was,
there usually
he was terrible, on set or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I think they could have cast somebody other than Don Cheadle to play that role. Don Cheadle could have played anything else, really. Don Cheadle could have been Black Panther for all I care.
Yeah.
Because Black Panther is a politician at heart,
Yeah. I think the thing with him being in that movie is he knows how to deliver a line.
Yeah.
Like he knows how to do that.
He's set there to do punchlines, more or less,
Yes.
And in my opinion, it's not in his character at all. He's
No.
supposed to be kind of a more stern military type of character, you know.
Yeah, which we got with Terrence Howard.
Terrence Howard did a great job, you know.
Yeah.
And I really did love him as, you know,
Rhodey.
a war machine, you know.
Yeah. The
So-
things that could have been.
That makes me sad. Don Cheadle, again, nothing against him. Great actor, wonderful actor, but just not the right role. And he doesn't act it
Yeah.
true to the character or even the previous incarnation of the character at all, you know.
Yeah, he's not nearly as you were saying, stern
So
or like serious.
yeah, and that seems like a small thing, but it alienated me so much when I watched that movie and pulled me right out of the movie. And then you had the other problems where the villain was kind of, you know, silly, over the top, corporate corruption type of guy. And I will give I will give what's his name, the octopus guy, what's his name, the whips.
Oh, Whiplash.
I always forget his name.
Yeah, Mickey Rourke.
Mickey Rourke did a great job as Whiplash. I liked him. It kind of sucks that he kind of went out like a bitch, you know.
He deserved more than that.
He had the cool scene during the racing part. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I was like, as much as I don't like that movie, that scene is my favorite, like one of my favorite Iron Man things, hands down.
Yeah. And that was an awesome scene, which is why I think I push it above Iron Man 3, because there were scenes in that movie where I was like, oh, that was cool, you know?
Yeah.
And it didn't feel long, whereas Iron Man 3 just felt like it was like
it went on
3 days
forever.
long,
Yeah.
you know? So I give that second to last spot to Iron Man 2. Now, Iron Man 2 I would probably have on in the background, you know, while I'm doing dishes or something, if it's on TNT or something, you know.
And it's on TNT.
Iron Man 3, I'm shutting that TV off. You know. So that gives you my perception of the difference.
Yeah.
My third worst Marvel movie, and this might come as a surprise to a lot of people, but I really think they did a disjustice to the first of these movies. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Ooh, please explain that one.
There are so many things that just pulled me out of that movie. There were some kind of cool jokes, and again, it's a Marvel movie, so even though it's bad for a Marvel movie, in my opinion, it's not bad. I would still watch it again if it was on TV or something. You know?
Right.
Probably wouldn't buy it.
Yeah. It's entertaining.
It has entertaining parts, I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
The ending is cool. I like the ending. But the middle is just sloppy and messy, and it's not really a Guardian story. It's more like you know, kind of
It's a story about
daddy
the important,
son issue story.
Yeah, it's
with sprinklings of
the Guardians.
in it. Yeah,
Makes sense.
and the soundtrack was terrible. Especially when they used a good song in their advertising and didn't include it in the movie, as we addressed in our review.
yes.
It's pretty fresh, so I won't bring up too many spoilers or anything. Go watch our review or go see the movie. You know, it's still worth seeing in theaters. Again, Marvel Universe, so it's still okay.
yeah.
But this movie has so many forced jokes that just did not land for me, that were just like making me cringe like through half of the movie.
the run-on gags.
It felt like it was really long to me. I don't know about you, but it felt like it was like 30 minutes too long.
I personally didn't get that feeling.
There was a lot of, I know you liked it a little more than I did.
Yeah.
There were scenes where I just like couldn't help but inappropriately laugh because it was just so out of place and so not great.
Yeah, I know what scene you're talking about.
Man. And I just did not, after loving that first movie and seeing how it's so applauded with like a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes.
98?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's a
No.
I swear to God, it's a ridiculous number. But it is people saying it's better than the first one, and the first one is among my favorite. You know, spoiler alert again.
Yeah.
But the second one, the music is not good. The jokes don't land.
They end up using a song
Drax.
twice in that movie.
Drax is way over the top and not the Drax from the first movie. Now he's just a fucking punching bag, essentially, for their jokes that don't land, you know?
Yeah.
And he does have some good jokes, like when he meets the bug girl. What's her name?
Yeah.
Mantis, maybe? Is that her name?
Yeah, it's Mantis.
When he meets Mantis and, you know, says she's hideous, but she's like beautiful on the inside or something, you know. That was kind of cute and funny, but he was that the entire movie, you know, and so many of the jokes didn't land for me, you know.
Drax has like one touching moment
it's
that
dropped
literally involves touching.
It's dropped a little bit on Rotten Tomatoes. It's 82 now. IMDb gave it an 8.1, and then Metacritic is a lot lower at 67 out of 100. So I'm more in line with Metacritic, you know. It gets a passing grade, but I wouldn't really want to watch it again.
Right.
My fourth worst movie of the Marvel Universe for me is going to be Thor: The Dark World. And
makes sense.
The reason why is because it's just not memorable. Like, you know, I like the characters in it fine, specifically like the Professor. This Professor is probably the best character in that entire movie.
Yeah. Easily.
I do like how Loki kind of twists things at the end, and I like the after credits scene that kind of sets up Ragnarok, where spoilers for an old movie. Spoilers. Loki has replaced Odin on the throne.
Super spoilers.
But in the end, it just wasn't really that memorable. You know, you had the Dark Elves that just, I don't even remember what they were trying to get. They were coming to Earth dimension for something, and they had these giant spires that were crashing into things for some reason. And Thor just hit stuff with his hammer, and it was solved. I don't know.
Yeah.
The scientist did science and solved the problem, you know? So, while it was entertaining, it was short, which is important for a bad movie. It was short and tolerable.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of forgettable, you know? Again, watch it on TV, wouldn't buy it. And then my fifth worst movie of the Marvel Universe is Ant-Man. A lot of people really loved Ant-Man. But for me, I just thought it was a little overhyped. Maybe that was the problem for me watching it. I've seen it twice now because I thought maybe it was overhyped for me. So if I watch it a second time, I'll like it a little more. No, I still didn't like it that much. Paul Rudd, he just always plays the same guy. And I didn't feel like I was getting much out of him. I liked him in Civil War. For some reason, he had better lines and better delivery in Civil War. But in Ant-Man itself, I just didn't like him. Michael Douglas pretty much hogged the screen every time they were together because he stood out as being so much better than Paul Rudd was in those scenes.
Yeah, I think the big thing with Paul Rudd, as you know, we're going to really use this guy, is that like you said, he's the same guy in every movie he's in. He's a doofus.
Yeah, he does the doofus well. That's his.
It's like he might
typecast.
He might be like kind of good at like doing something in this movie, which apparently is like thieving. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to just character interactions, he's just an idiot.
Yeah, and for me, maybe it's because I don't have kids. I mean, you have a daughter, so maybe you could sympathize with him a little bit more. But I didn't feel like his daughter. Like, interactions were earned very much, you know?
Not really.
It's like, yeah, I see you care for your daughter, but you're never there, like, ever, and you're constantly causing problems for this poor girl, you know?
Right. I think
And I didn't like him. I don't know.
I have a way to fix that movie, and that's basically what you do for establishing a character, is maybe actually don't tell what happened to him that led to him going to jail.
Yeah. And I mean, there were some little laughs in there, usually when Paul Rudd was performing his doofus role. But again, he's this like elite engineer, you know, this elite electrical engineer, but he's still a doofus, you know, and a criminal at that, you know.
Right.
So I don't know. I thought there's just a lot of inconsistencies there. And Paul Rudd, you know, again, Michael Douglas did a great job, so he just made it even more painful to see Paul Rudd just playing his typecast the entire movie. Like, he doesn't have expressions. He just has the same, like, you know, look through the whole movie, you know. And that's not anything against Paul Rudd. I love Paul Rudd, especially in, like, Anchorman, you know.
Oh, yeah.
He's probably my favorite character in Anchorman. But
yeah, in movies like that, I would go as far as to say that's where Paul Rudd belongs.
So that's my official list of the worst movies, in my opinion, in the Marvel Universe. Iron Man 3 is the worst, followed by 2, followed by Guardians, followed by Thor Dark World, and finally Ant-Man. So what are your 5 worst? And then we'll get into the best.
My 5 worst. Man, okay. Going to go out on a limb here and say the worst of the worst, in my opinion, Thor.
Wow. I actually like Thor.
And I'll tell you why. My biggest issue with Thor, his first outing in a movie, is that it's half a Thor movie. At least for me. There is a sizable portion of this movie spent exploring like what it would take for someone like Thor to become like a person, to become normal, to see what being people is like, as opposed to just lauding himself over other people, including other Asgardians, as the son of Odin and the god of thunder, and like the guy who's like at a moment's notice ready to wreck some shit.
But Chris Hemsworth, he's jacked, man. How can you say no to that bod?
This is how I can say no to that bod. When you take that bod, that blonde-haired, blue-eyed, Aryan-looking male,
beautiful bastard he is,
beautiful bastard that he is, and you take off that armor, and here's another gripe. They let him have a helmet for all of 10 seconds.
I mean, that's kind of been the case the entire time, though.
True. It's like in the Thor: The Dark World, the helmet never shows up, but at least in the first Thor movie, he had it on for like a second and then immediately took it off. It's like
this is inconvenient.
This is what you're gonna get the entire time.
Another. Smash the helmet.
When you take that bod and
look at that body,
just force him to basically take in the flavors of Albuquerque.
That is a pretty random place to end up, especially when in the Dark World they're on the opposite side of the country.
It's like, oh my god, you guys had a shot in like. Here's the thing: the half of the Thor movie that's actually a Thor movie that has Odin and Loki and the Jotuns from Jotunheim and throwing around and swinging around Mjolnir,
Frost giants.
Yes, that's great. I love that. But when you bring in someone dopey like Kat Dennings to call that fantastic hammer meow meow,
it's so good. What do you not like about this?
I'll tell you exactly what I don't like about it. That is the hammer of the gods. This is the hammer that imbues the power of Thor into someone, and it's been reduced to a fucking cat meme.
Well, see, I don't know. I have trouble. Again, I tell you, I always have trouble with like the space opera stuff and like the other world stuff, you know. I feel more connected to the characters when they're kind of earthly bound, you know, in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
Thor is one of those characters, especially in the comics, because of the way he talks. Especially in the comics where I'm just like, ugh, another one of these stories, you know. I don't care what's happening on Asgard. I don't give a shit what's happening in this space dimension. I don't care, you know, what's happening on this frost giant world where everything is ice and nothing fucking matters, you know. Like,
right.
I liked it when he was on Earth and messing around with the idiot, you know. Like, I could enjoy the movie more personally,
right,
when he's on Earth and dealing with, you know, Loki fucking things up on Earth, you know.
Right. And I can understand the appeal of that. I mean, I really do. It's like, oh, this is what it would be like to take someone like that and put him on Earth.
Uh-huh.
And also, this is about making him humble, so we're going to take away his powers and put him in the middle of fucking nowhere, New Mexico, and we're gonna make him go through all of this shit to like have him learn how to be, humble. That was the moral of that story is humility.
But yeah, I can see your point.
Yeah.
I
The thing that really made that like the worst movie is actually the Thor movie that's about to come out this year, which I might put up there with like my top 5 once it's out. Thor Ragnarok and the 80s hair metal album cover that entire movie's going to be.
I don't know. I think that movie would be good. But I kind of wonder if it's being a little overhyped like Civil War was for me. Like Civil War was very good, but there was like long parts of that movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that movie is being hyped the shit out of unduly. But with that being said, that trailer made me think of what I wish the first Thor movie was.
Really?
Yeah, this is like this is what the first Thor movie could have been. I would have loved for that movie, the first Thor movie, to have ended with him being sent to Earth, being like punished for being proud and starting a war that his father didn't want.
Yeah.
But that's not what we got. We didn't get that. And that is why I can't like that movie.
Okay.
I can't.
I give it to you.
It hurts.
Number 2.
Number 2, second worst for me. I think the second worst for me would be honestly, that's going to be Iron Man 2. I put Iron Man 2 as my second worst.
So below Iron Man 3 for you.
Yes. I think it's worse than Iron Man 3 because I like Lethal Weapon 2. It's worse than Iron Man 3 for me because this is a movie in which it basically just seemed like a setup for the Avengers. This is a movie that didn't have nearly enough whiplash, in my opinion.
Yeah, Whiplash was pretty cool.
Yeah, and they turned Hammer and anything Justin Hammer related into a joke. Mostly because Tony Stark doesn't take anything seriously. But still, like, Justin Hammer, he's not the type of guy that you make a joke out of. This is the type of guy who is basically Tony Stark without any morals, like at all. This is the guy who would actually invent that Iron Man suit in a cave and actively give that to his captors so that he can escape scot-free.
Yeah.
Like that is who Justin Hammer is. But they turned him into basically a bumbling tech idiot, Sam Rockwell.
It's not quite as bad as BVS Lex Luthor, but it's bad nonetheless.
It's bad. It's bad, and it hurts. And what they did with the Tony Stark Pepper Potts thing,
Man.
Here's the thing that hurt.
I liked her
for
more
me.
in 2.
Yeah,
But 3, she was awful.
Yeah,
in my opinion. I don't know.
The Pepper Potts, what they did with her, like what they let Gwyneth Paltrow do with her, I thought was fine.
Mm-hmm.
How Tony Stark carried himself throughout that movie and basically trying to hand over the company. No, he wouldn't. Never in a million years.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Give over Daddy's company.
Yeah, that is very out of character for him.
Yes, very.
And I had no problem with Don Cheadle. I have a problem with Don Cheadle being relegated to sidekick.
I would take Don Cheadle in any other capacity than military officer.
Right. I mean, like, as a military officer, I was like, I don't have any experience. I'll let it go. when it came to making him like the guy who's taking orders from a person he's had to babysit,
Yeah.
I was like, no, he wouldn't.
Yeah, probably not.
No, he fucking would. It was like that was there was just too many things that were out of character for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me out of the movie. It just is like, oh, Avengers tie-in.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's a very thin line for me,
Yeah.
3 and 2 could be switched very easily, but for me, 3 just had the more egregious issues and inconsistencies for me.
Oh, yeah.
And 2 was a very close follower of 3,
Yeah. Which is why for my next one, the next one's number 3.
All right. Glad we're on the same page here.
My biggest pet peeve.
And it sucks because Robert Downey Jr. is easily the best character in the Marvel universe,
Yeah, they play the shit out of him.
But he has 2 of the worst movies.
He does. And it hurts. Because he's a shining light in those garbage heaps that just will never be the first Iron Man movie.
Yeah.
The thing that really chapped my ass about Iron Man 3.
Gonna need some chapstick for that ass.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I get out the whole stick.
God, you shouldn't say that.
Yeah, internet, get at me. The thing
Let
that...
the Photoshops begin.
Oh, it's going to be bad. The thing that chaps my ass about Iron Man 3 is the Mandarin. He was like...
Which one? The white one pretending to be Oriental, or the really white one who's not even trying to pretend, but still takes the mantle?
Okay. Fun fact, Ben Kingsley is actually Indian.
Really?
And by Indian, I mean from India, Indian. Ben Kingsley is a stage name.
Wow.
And he very easily passes for white.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just learned something.
Yeah.
Boy, do I look like a douche.
With that being said, they played him as a white.
Yeah.
They played him as the white that gets found out to be the fake one to reveal the other white one.
Yeah. But then again, if they had a Southeastern Asian person being the Mandarin, that would also be very out of the times and very probably racist.
And this is going to sound
it's a very complicated approach they had to take there.
Yeah, this is going to sound really bad, but I really wanted the Asian one. And I'll tell you why. For some reason, we've gotten PC to the point where, as you were mentioning like much earlier, for some reason, only whites are allowed to be villains in Hollywood nowadays because we have to play it PC. We don't want any negative stereotypes out there or anything like that. There is a very smart way they could have played an Asian Mandarin. One, you never fucking call him that. 2, you still let him be Asian and maybe also make him a weapons dealer who might be into magic, which could have helped launch Doctor Strange, which we'll get into that one.
I think it would have been a cooler idea to release Doctor Strange first and have, the Mandarin being like the counterpart to the ancient one or something,
Right. Or end
something
up being like
that.
something like a wayward disciple that gets mentioned at some point.
That would be really cool. And then have them just kind of cross paths with Iron Man and Iron Man 3. That could have been really cool.
Right.
The arms dealer idea is cool. You could have a person that's from a part of China that speaks Mandarin. And so his, street name is Mandarin because he speaks Mandarin, but he deals arms or whatever else,
The funny thing is, in the very first Iron Man movie, there is a reference to the Mandarin in that that group that had captured him. They were called the 10 Rings.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I never realized that.
Yeah, and the 10 Rings were a reference to the 10 rings that the Mandarin wore on his hands. What they could have done was they could have had a scene that harkens back to that first movie and just have him basically being the person pulling the strings.
Mm-hmm. Maybe he lets Tony Stark go or something, you know?
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Yeah, like have him be the one who passes the information to Yusuf, the other guy who's a captor.
Yeah.
Or who's not a captor,
The
but
professor that's
captive.
helping him out.
Yeah. That could have been a really smart way to kind of tie those two things together.
And of course, he was unconscious.
Yeah.
And if the Mandarin were, say, an arms dealer, with other things going on for sure, but if he was an arms dealer and his biggest supplier, the Stark Corporation, you know, Stark Industries,
Yeah.
the person that runs the company is suddenly injured by a bomb that he's probably responsible for, that would be pretty cool that he went to his top guy and said, hey, go help him out, patch him up. When he wakes up, pretend like you're captive too and help him get out, you know?
Yeah. Or he could have been someone who was caught in the
he doesn't want to lose cred with these terrorist factions he's manipulating, you know, or something along those lines. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a cool idea.
Yeah. It unfortunately is not something that actually happened.
And of course, hindsight's 50-50, you know.
Right.
We weren't in the creator's room, you know.
Right.
They probably didn't even know they were going to be able to make a second and third movie when they were making it. Cause, this kickstarted.
Iron Man was a gamble, to be sure. And it paid off for sure. But that is, I think, the main reason why I didn't like Iron Man 3. There is a secondary reason, not related to Pepper Potts, since we've already talked about that. Mm-hmm. Not related to rich white Mandarin. It has to do with how they handled what was supposed to be the extremist story, which is supposed to be how essentially Tony Stark makes himself into a superhuman. Like, this would have been something where you get to see his need for being on the bleeding edge become like something of a character flaw, and not like, oh, I'm always the one who's at the edge of technology and like it's always great.
Sure.
Like, this could have been like the story where he risks his life with something that someone that he knows from a while back had created, and has no way of really knowing whether or not he's going to come out on the other end.
You reminded me of something else I really disliked about the third one, which is why another reason why it pushes it lower than 2 for me.
Yeah.
There's a part in the movie where they take what in comics has been very traditionally a breaking point for Tony Stark in the form of alcoholism.
Yeah.
And they take that and they make it into kind of an act, you know, so that he can get people out safely, you know. And so you remember the scene, he more or less pretends to be a drunken slob. And
that's in Iron Man 2.
Is that 2?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Maybe I need to change my rankings.
Yeah.
I could have sworn that was 3.
No, that's the first time that Rhodey puts the suit on. Rhodey puts the suit on because...
I'm mixing my terrible Iron Man movies together, apparently.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 needs to drop lower now. I don't know.
Yeah.
I still dislike 3 a lot, though.
3's got a lot of shit in it.
But when they take his, you know, problem that has been like a breaking point for Tony Stark throughout comics, you know, for a long time.
Yeah.
And made him a more human character and made it into kind of a joke act, you know.
Yeah, it's like, I'm just going to get drunk because I'm trying to make people, like, not like me. As opposed
get
to
out of my hair, like, right now. Not because I have an issue that has been building up over time, you know.
Yeah, like an actual issue with booze.
So that seemed like a big wasted opportunity. But
Yeah.
So I think we got it pretty consistently.
Yeah.
2 and 3, pretty bad. In your case, you think Thor is the worst.
Personally would put Thor the Dark World as the second least bad.
So the fourth worst.
Yeah. Mostly because I just don't remember it very well.
Yeah, I had the same issue as we discussed.
Yeah, it just doesn't hurt me nearly as much. And for the last of the worst, what would I say it is?
That's where it gets tough because the movies are, after that point, they're good.
Yeah.
You know, the worst of the good, you know?
Yeah, the worst of the good movies.
You know, I considered like Age of Ultron. I considered, first Captain America.
Yeah, it's Age of Ultron.
You think so?
Yeah.
That movie was so slow. It was right on the verge between that and Ant-Man for me.
It was slow. It was... it in a lot of ways just seemed like just a very petty movie to make.
Yeah.
Just because I'm just going to say...
To me, it felt like Iron Man 4.
Yeah.
It really did.
It felt like that. It felt like a cheap way of like showing off what they technically have the rights to with Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch.
And then they had things that were just completely random and not explained, like Thor going to this random fountain in the middle of nowhere for no reason and coming and suddenly deciding, oh, I had a vision of some kind that we didn't see and I'm going to shock this robot and bring it to life,
I had this vision. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to call you?
To a much lesser extent, I think it was kind of Marvel's BVS, where it's just so many things going on that didn't make any sense and had no context and just kind of a bad villain. And,
too many cooks.
Yeah.
There were too many things going on at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing that kind of... It just hurt. It hurt for me to watch this because it was inconsistent.
Yeah.
This is one of the movies that is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as opposed to the ones that are technically Marvel movies but outside of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that was inconsistent within itself. Mm-hmm. And I'll put it out there right now. It's Quicksilver. Quicksilver.
Yeah, his death was just...
I'll tell you why it's absolute bullshit. Like, not moments, like maybe like 20 minutes before that scene where he gets shot to death by bullets, there is a scene where there is a bullet coming up from the floor, going in slow motion, that should basically tell you that bullets should not be a thing that he has to worry about. Mm-hmm. His perception of time should be such that everything's going slow to him.
Like, for example, the good Quicksilver from X-Men, who just pushes him aside and laughs it off.
Right. It would be one thing if, like we make the Marvel Cinematic Universe Quicksilver. He's fast, but his brain still operates in real time. But to make that scene where he visibly sees a bullet going in slow motion, that undercuts every instance of him getting shot in that movie.
Mm-hmm. And I think it would have had maybe a little more weight. I think maybe they had probably originally planned for Hawkeye to die.
Yeah.
Because they showed off his family in that movie and really brought it home.
Yeah, it was directed by Joss Whedon, so we all assumed that he was going to kill Hawkeye off.
They very much set it up that, he's only doing one more mission to help you guys, because he wants to be with his family or whatever. And of course, because Marvel seems to forget these things later on, it doesn't stay the case, but
yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of problems. The more I think about it, maybe Ant-Man deserves that 6th spot instead of that 5th. I don't know.
Yeah.
Aja, you bring up a lot of good points just that I forgot about.
Inconsistencies.
Mm-hmm. So let's do the speed round here because we're running out of tape.
Speed round.
5 best. For me, the best Marvel movie has to be Guardians of the Galaxy, the original. That movie just came so far out of left field and blew me the fuck away. I couldn't even imagine how much I loved that movie because prior to that, I didn't know who the fuck Guardians of the Galaxy were. I don't think most people knew who the fuck Guardians of the Galaxy were.
They didn't.
Unless you were a diehard Marvel fan, Maybe you did. I didn't.
I mean, I knew about the Guardians.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that the Guardians had been different groups at certain points. But, like, even in the comics, they weren't presented nearly as comedic as they did.
It's funny you bring that up, because after seeing that movie, I was like, God, I got to read these comics. And I went back and read several different volumes of several different series of Guardians of the Galaxy, and I was like, this is shit. I mean, it's not shit, but it just wasn't that good. It was like,
it's not what you expected.
Marvel took a huge risk with this movie, and it paid off gloriously.
Oh, yeah.
The soundtrack is great. The character dynamics is great. They're not forcing the jokes like they did in the second one, They're not trying to kind of cater to fan demand. I mean, that movie just hit me so hard, and maybe there's a little bit of that low expectation that gave it a little boost. But, man, I can still watch that movie, and I'll be singing with the music and still laughing at the jokes. They still feel fresh and good. And,
oh, yeah.
Even the villain, mattered, to the greater scheme of what's coming with Infinity War. There was a narrative that was connected and still, moved the Marvel universe forward, whereas Guardians 2 had, the one cameo that mattered, and then nothing else really mattered in that movie.
Yeah.
So I gotta give it to Guardians, because that just blew me away, and I still love that movie. I don't know why I don't own it on Blu-ray yet, but I should. That is easily my favorite Marvel movie.
That movie is a must-have if you don't have it already.
For sure. Number 2, it's a hard decision, but I think I gotta go with Avengers, the first Avengers, because that was the first time we saw them all together, and that was the big moment we were all waiting for and hoping for.
Yeah, and it's literally movie history
for sure, and it was awesome. That scene where Hulk goes smash, 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 and then puny God, when Loki's being a dick,
Yeah.
That was just so perfect, and they hit those notes so well. And there were some things that were kind of convenient, but I loved how they addressed everything. I like how Tony just kind of rides a nuke into space, and almost dies in space, and then in the future is traumatized by that event. There's lasting effects not only for him but for New York City, and for the government, and for what happens in Civil War. How they fear that we got all these things coming. It was just a good movie, great movie all around, and people love Loki, Tom Hiddleston, and he's good. Don't get me wrong, he's really good, but I really don't feel like Marvel, as of right now, has that key villain yet.
Not yet,
including Loki. And again, Loki's great; he's fine. I don't have any issues with him, and he served the purpose for that movie. But that's why it's just below Guardians for me, because it still didn't have that kind of lasting villainous impact,
Right.
3, gotta rush these out, man. For 3, I'm gonna have to go with Spider-Man: Homecoming. I really, really enjoyed it. I know you have some problems apparently that we'll discuss later.
Yeah.
But it really surprised me, and I think again it was a thing of low expectations, because Guardians had been so hyped, and then I went and saw it, and it disappointed me so much. And then I think because of that, when Spider-Man got hyped, and I, kind of didn't want to see it because I was afraid of being disappointed,
Right.
And I went and saw it, and it was everything I've kind of didn't know I wanted from a Spider-Man movie. I've been so conditioned by Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man that I didn't realize I wanted a person that actually looked like they were a teenager, that actually acted like they were a teenager, that actually, had friends that were teenagers, and not 35-year-old people,
Yeah.
I just loved how they handled him, I loved it far more than I expected to. And again, maybe it was a little bit low expectations, but it was great. And I love seeing Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton was great.
Oh, yeah.
I wish he was in more stuff, because I love Michael Keaton, and he does the crazy part well. He's got those crazy eyes locked down, man.
He's so intense.
And they had some twists in that movie that just really caught me, that I really didn't expect, that I really loved. And I mean, there was some, kind of winking at the audience types of things, and that's in every Marvel movie. So I was able to dismiss those things, they weren't egregious. There was some kind of goofy CG in it, where he's kind of got Gumby limbs going on, but overall it blew me away. It was a very, very good movie.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
Not Dark Knight good, like some people are claiming, but it was very good.
Yeah, I also while I do have my issues with it, I enjoy that movie very much.
Mm-hmm. My number 4 is going to be Iron Man.
Ooh,
the one that really kicked things off. I mean, Hulk got it kind of started technically, with Norton and everything, but
yeah,
it was Iron Man that really got things going and really sealed the deal for Marvel and Disney to kind of push things forward with Robert Downey Jr. But Iron Man just really, really came out of nowhere for me and just really impressed me. And it was just so cool. And Robert Downey Jr. was just such a likable character that was really fun to just watch interact on screen. He just owned that character so well and made that movie what it was. It follows the 4 because it has that kind of weak third act, that weak the final game boss fight kind of,
right,
with the, kind of like the villainous, pseudo uncle, the guy that helped raise him, is like, well, now I guess I have no attachment to you whatsoever. I'll just kill you now that you're an adult,
Right.
Just seemed kind of really inconsistent and kind of silly, but
it was a bit weak, all things considered.
So yeah, Iron Man is my number 4 spot, and number 5. I don't think a lot of people will expect this, especially if you didn't bother to see it. But Doctor Strange with Benedoodle Cumbersnooch.
being a dick in a cucumber batch.
Yeah. Our favorite BBC Sherlock actor.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I didn't expect much from Doctor Strange. I figured it would be like a kind of a visual delight type of thing, but I ended up really enjoying it. Even when Cumberbatch was playing the kind of despicable, narcissistic character you didn't like, he was still kind of fun to watch,
The lovable asshole.
Yeah, and I really liked it. I mean, there's some silly things in there with the Ancient One being this, ultra pale white woman, blue-eyed white woman,
Celtic.
Yeah, living in the Himalayan mountains, it's a little inconsistent, but
all right.
But I guess Marvel was trying to avoid the, mystic Asian stereotype,
Yeah.
So maybe they deserve credit, but maybe if they'd put it, I don't know, in Ireland, made her like a druid or something, like an ancient druid.
I would have even accepted them having it passed to her from an Asian person.
Yeah. So I mean that movie was really good, and I liked how they kind of drew some criticism even on her, because even she was guilty of using that kind of dark realm power, to empower herself to defend things, and do what she saw as the right thing, even though it was probably the wrong thing in the long run, because it made her corruptible.
Right.
So there's some dynamics in there that I really liked. It's another thing that a lot of these Marvel movies tend to skip out on a little bit is character development. Like, you saw a very clear progression for Benedoodle Cumbersnooch's gradual incline in character, and he kind of realized, hey, there's more than just beautiful little old me in my, whatever he was driving, Ferrari, Maserati, whatever he had.
Yeah.
And being this world-class, surgeon, there's more to this, and he had to learn a new discipline and, really dive in and not just exploit his intelligence for an easy life, where he could kick back and just, enjoy the best of the world. But he actually, had to work for something, and he became great at it because he applied himself with his genius instead of just kind of leaning against his genius to make life easy,
Yeah.
So there was a very clear and very cool progression, and I loved his kind of sidekick that he had going on, who kind of turned to the dark side at the end, and then the other pseudo sidekick he had that was running the other, I don't know what they call him, temples, embassy,
Yeah.
whatever it was, mystic embassies. And I even liked like the after credit scene where he has Thor, he's talking to Thor about mystic, properties from other places, and he's just refilling Thor's beer, So that was pretty cool. I mean, even the cape I thought was going to be super corny and stupid, but the way they handled it in the movie was kind of comic and fun and made sense,
Yeah, I love that cape.
And I think the movie gets a little bit of unfair criticism for that big final blob, which is the final villain, the kind of undefined evil being thing.
Oh, Dormammu.
Yeah, but I don't recognize it as Dormammu because
it was a weird like face blob shifting like thing from the dark dimension that you saw for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. To me, Dormammu is the big flamehead guy that wrecks shit.
Right.
But I liked how they had the kind of game where he was willing to sacrifice himself again and again and again to trap Dormammu into this endless cycle in order to get what he wanted, just by being the stubborn person he is naturally.
Right. It was a clever way to subject what was supposedly a creature who lives beyond time to the rigors of time itself.
Mm-hmm. And I really love it, and it might even be higher on the list for me. I'd have to rewatch it. I feel like I need to rewatch it a few times and decide, but it's definitely top 5 for me. I'd say somewhere between 3 and 5. Maybe it could trade with Spider-Man or Iron Man, but like it's a really solid movie, and Benedict Cumberbatch is a legit presence in that movie, and he has a very well written, very cool, storyline that really changes his character and really shows character growth, which is what you want,
Yeah, I thought like my favorite thing about that movie is that he doesn't get, the ability to become a surgeon, or he could, but he decides against it. Yeah. The thing that he'd been after this whole time.
And the visual effects in that movie are just cool too. When they're flipping the cities all around and running in between all these pyres and stuff, that was just cool. It's visually very impressive, and like. A lot of it's CG, but it doesn't look like shitty, washed up CG. It looked like really well done, really legitimate CG,
Yeah, I that was actually one of the few that I saw in 3D.
Yeah, that was an awesome movie.
Yeah, it was worth it.
Yeah, for sure. It kind of gave me what's that Nolan movie?
Inception.
It gave me Inception feelings, like hardcore. I was getting those kind of vibes, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
especially during those like chase fight scenes they had going.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I would, if you haven't seen that, if you skipped it because you're like, Doctor Strange, this sounds lame, check it out. It's a really good movie with a really good cast.
It's definitely worth your time.
So I'm done. What do you got for your top 5?
Okay, top 5. Okay, I am also going to have basically quite a few of the same that you picked. Actually, I take that back. 2 of the movies that I am going to have in there are going to be Captain America movies.
Wow.
Actually, yeah.
See, Captain America movies just rub me the wrong way for some reason. I don't know. Not like Iron Man 2 and 3, but something about them just
they didn't really get you.
Yeah, it doesn't land, including Civil War.
Yeah.
Just don't land for me for some reason.
Yeah, Civil War I'm not going to have in my top 5. I'd make that like a number 6 or 7, honestly. But Captain America, the First Avenger, and Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Yeah. I really dig those movies. There's something about the kind of
excuse me,
almost like propaganda feel that the first one has.
Yeah.
It's like, we are taking our soldiers over to Germany to fight the Nazis, and we're gonna suck Hitler across the jaw.
Yeah, for sure. And they give him that kind of goofy reason to have the goofy costume,
Oh yeah,
and call himself Captain America, which is totally not owned in present day time,
Right. It was like it's all about the stars and stripes.
So,
see, you gotta represent your country.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, Winter Soldier and the first Captain America in particular are pretty good movies. Captain America more for the visual stuff. Like, I love the chase scenes. I love like the choreography of the fights. Probably the best choreography in the Marvel movies. You know.
Oh yeah,
I love that choreography. But the first one had some clever points to it. You know, and I just thought it kind of fell apart in the third act. But that was just me.
I mean, it does kind of fall apart, but it falls apart in that it goes too simple, which honestly it kind of fits the premise of that movie.
Simple man doing simple things for a simple premise.
Is like I am a simple man and I am about doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
That's Captain America for me, and I love it. It's like as much as I love the lovable bastard, I love the good-natured, good-hearted, I'm going to do the right thing type of guy. Just that little bit more.
So are you saying one of the Captain Americas is number one?
I'm going to say one of the Captain Americas is number 2.
Okay. So what's your number one then?
My number one...
What is going to kill everybody?
Oh.
Just knock them down, get all the monies.
It's got to be Guardians.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're on the same page.
Only because it's one thing to have like one lovable asshole, but when everyone's a lovable asshole in their own way,
set to an awesome soundtrack.
And it included the Nova Corps, which never get any play.
Didn't
honestly,
expect them at all.
Right, and just for some reason, like for me personally, all of the jokes landed. Even the things that weren't necessarily intending to like just be a straight up joke.
Yeah, I can't even remember one that even remotely like pulled me out of it.
Right.
I enjoyed every single one.
Yeah.
I still do. I rewatch it all the time. It like, still gets me.
From things like, oh, I have this plan. I'm going to need you and you and you to get this thing. And you, Pete, I'm going to need you to get that guy's leg. And then they like cut to him actually getting it. And he's like, you want my what?
Yeah, what a gem of a movie, man.
Right?
That's a rare type of movie, you know?
Yeah.
It's just all around fun.
Oh, my God, it is. Right below that, I would put Captain America Winter Soldier.
Wow.
Because I really like spy movies. And that's what that movie was.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
Yeah, I think the Marvel...
And seeing S.H.I.E.L.D. just get exploited that way, it was really cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think the Marvel does best when instead of trying to be a comic book movie, they try to be another type of movie, but fit the comic book into it. And I think that is how... honestly, Captain America Winter Soldier was received as well as it was.
Yeah. And, like, we don't see Samuel L. Jackson really much after that, you know? We see him a little bit in Civil War, right?
But the last time you see him is in a helicarrier in Avengers Age of Ultron.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It was, like, kind of like last minute, it's like, oh, yeah, like, I got the helicarrier.
Yeah. But he, you know... His role is greatly reduced, and largely because of the consequences that come from Winter Soldier, which is really cool.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you don't imagine Nick Fury backing down, you know?
Yeah, like seeing the world's, like, super spy, the one that Tony Stark,
It's getting late, folks.
Yeah, goes out of his way to say, like, he is the spy. His secrets have secrets.
Yeah.
Like, this is the premier spy. Like, even more than Black Widow, like, in all of Marvel history. And to see, like, him being taken out by this mysterious assassin that's just pulled out of fucking nowhere, who's, like, a fucking ghost story. Like, somehow someone pulled out the fucking boogeyman, and he got Nick Fury.
Yeah, for sure. And that movie is what makes Civil War even viable.
Oh,
without Winter Soldier's very, very good setup, you really probably wouldn't have that. Like if he became too chummy with Winter Soldier too quickly, you know, Steve Rogers and Bucky, you know, you'd have a Civil War that didn't really make sense because they're so chummy already.
Right.
Instead of him searching for his friend and trying to redeem his friend and save his friend, knowing full well what he did to Tony's parents,
Oh, yeah.
And if they had become like just straight villains the entire time with no threads of connection, it wouldn't make sense for Steve to hide the truth from Tony in Civil War,
Right. It was like they had to reestablish just how attached to Bucky that he is.
So I agree. Especially for the MCU, they really set up a cool dynamic that sold Civil War. Even though I didn't enjoy it quite as much as a lot of people did, it still sold it the point very well.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But the way that Winter Soldier is set up, it was. See, that was a movie that I basically thought was perfection. Until Guardians of the Galaxy came out.
Yeah.
Or did that come out after Guardians? I'm not sure.
Damn, I'm dying. I think they were the same year.
Yeah.
I don't remember which came first. I thought Winter Soldier came first.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, my God. So, yeah.
So that's your number 2.
Yeah, that's my number 2. My number 3 is probably... number 3 is probably the first Avengers movie.
Yeah,
it's
hard to pass that up.
Like everyone fucking shows up. It's like, oh my God, I didn't think that this was ever going to happen in my lifetime.
Yeah,
and it's just like,
let alone in like 3 years after Iron Man,
right?
Man,
what
a moment, man.
The only thing that
people born after that time won't realize how big a deal that was,
Oh yeah,
we had never had anything remotely like that up until then,
Yeah,
kids that were born around that time are just gonna have no idea what it's like to live in a world where that's not even seen as a possibility. Nobody could have imagined that prior.
That wasn't done.
Yeah,
that just wasn't done.
It was just seen as too much effort, too much money, too much risk. There's no way.
There's no way people are going to invest.
They
in all
fucking
of these movies.
did it, man.
Oh yeah, they did.
And it's hard to take away that feeling, man.
Yeah, the only thing that pulls me out of that movie a little bit is that before that movie happened, the issues that were happening with Edward Norton, like either asking for too much money or he just wasn't really on board with the project, and they had to get in someone new, which, by the way, Mark Ruffalo,
he does a good job.
He does a good job, and I'm waiting to see him hopefully knock it out of the park in Thor Ragnarok. With that said, with that one minor grievance, the rest of the movie's great. Loki could have been a bit better. The Chitauri died a little too Phantom Menace-y for me.
Chris is the one weak spot that'll shut them all down,
Yeah.
That sort of thing. I agree. It's a very convenient way to stop them.
It was very convenient, but it's like this
it
is
was
how
fun
we're
to
gonna
watch.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun watching New York get fucked up and me somehow not correlate that to 9/11. Yeah, it was just a lot of fun all around.
So that's 3. What do we got for 4?
Number 4 would be Captain America, the First Avenger.
Oh, wow. You got both of them on the top 5.
Oh, yeah.
You must really love those movies.
Yeah, I do.
I don't love them that much.
I love the first Captain America movie because Chris Evans.
He's a god. He's a studly dude.
He's not just a studly dude, but it was the Skinny Steve story that really fucking sold me on it. It was like, this is this really earnest Dudley Do-Right type character. It's just like, he's down on his luck. You see later in Winter Soldier that he was like basically an orphan at that point. He only had like Bucky looking out for him, which is
it's ironic how that dynamic switches,
in the movie. Yeah, but it was done so well And like they played up the whole, oh, they finally give him a chance, and he explains how it's just like it's World War II. I feel like I should be on the front lines.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be here, like not fighting alongside the other people who are giving their lives
Yeah.
for doing the right thing.
And I think he has that kind of dynamic that all of us have a little bit at some point in our life where
Right.
we're like, man, I should be doing more. I feel like I can do more. I know, like, in my present state, they're not going to let me, or I'm not going to be able to, maybe, but I'm going to try to overcome the odds, and,
Yeah, it's like he represents, for me, the part of me and everyone who can recognize the right thing to do and hopefully do it. Or at least in this case, be allowed to do it.
Yeah. For me, I totally agree with everything you're saying up until that third act, that last part of the movie. And that's where it loses everything for me, with the whole, I gotta just ride this plane into the ocean and freeze, I guess. And, conveniently.
Again,
Yeah.
a simple man.
Yeah, simple villain, Again, Marvel kind of struggles with its villains.
Yeah.
At least so far.
When
I
they're
think
not X-Men villains.
I think Spider-Man actually has probably the best villain because he has depth, whereas everybody else is just kind of bitter from the beginning.
Is like evil for evil's sake,
Yeah.
or like I'm mad because I was screwed over one time.
Michael Keaton's character has a lot of depth, not to spoil anything, but he's got reasons for what he's doing and how he perceives the world.
Oh yeah. It's actually funny that you bring up that movie because that's my number 5.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you had a lot of problems, so I was worried.
I mean, I have issues with it, but the enjoyment that I got out of those movies outweighs the issues that I have with it, and it gives me hope for what I hope they're going to do later down the line.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is my number 5 because while there were some issues that I had with it, most of them being either inconsistencies or story elements or characters that could have been swapped out for others.
I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. The story itself, what they present, is probably one of the more enjoyable Marvel stories to date.
For sure, yeah.
And
it's not like world changing like say a Dark Knight was, but it's
a local story.
Very good. Yeah. Very small scale, very cool story.
Yeah, I think that what it has going for it is kind of the same thing that the Netflix series have going for them, is that it feels local, it feels small, it feels like it could be happening next to you.
I need to get more into those because I watched the first few episodes of Daredevil and really enjoyed it, but I just fell off the wagon, and quit paying attention to it.
I mean, it's kind of a commitment.
Yeah.
Like if we were including the Netflix series, I probably would have had the Daredevil season 1 and Luke Cage season 1 instead of like maybe a couple of the movies that I had in my top 5.
Wow.
And that's only because with Daredevil, you get more time with him personally than you do with any of the other Avengers combined.
Sure.
It's like 13 hours with this one blind guy who's just got a lot of shit going on.
Now, I just want to say this for anybody watching who has not seen Spider-Man Homecoming yet, and why haven't you? I get it if you're watching this and you're like, man, they're just overhyping it, Everybody's saying the same thing because, the other guy said it. They're just repeating what the other guy said. I'm telling you, I felt the exact same way, especially after getting burned by Guardians 2.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was just going to be, fine. I thought it was going to be mediocre, like how I kind of feel about Ant-Man, I was like, man, it'll just be fine. I'll go see it. I'll forget it. And, it won't matter to me. I went in there and got very, not quite Guardians level surprised, but I was very pleasantly surprised and really enjoyed it and really enjoyed, what's the kid's name?
Tom Holland?
Tom Holland. I love Tom Holland's representation of the character, and there wasn't really a weak character in the movie. mean, maybe you could say the Liv character was a little weak.
Liz,
sorry.
She's a bit weak.
But
honestly, I thought Flash was not Flash.
I didn't even pay attention to that kid. I don't know.
Right. You're probably not going to, because this has nothing to do with him.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's had the very best side character that you're going to forget.
Yeah, his role is just to be the bully for having a bully's sake, you know.
Right.
Really. I mean, he's not even that good a bully at that, you know.
Yeah, no. This is like I have no problem with who they got for him. I just have a problem with what they had him do.
Yeah.
It's like he should have been, at the very least, an actual bully. He doesn't even have to be on the football team.
Yeah.
Just have him be a bully. That is the point of Flash.
Yeah. And I mean, you bring that up, and that's true.
Yeah.
True, totally true. But, you know, besides those two characters, I can't really think of anybody. Like, I really liked everybody. Now that's what I call a mediocre discussion.
Mediocre.
This week's cosplayer of the week is our friend Pete Mako, featuring his awesome Guy Gardner Green Lantern costume. Remember, if you'd like to be featured on our cosplayer of the week segment, you can submit your cosplay to our Twitter at HTBvids or on our Facebook at /HitTheBooks. Please don't submit other people's cosplay.
Yes, if you're going to submit anything, make sure that it is your own work, not someone else's.
Well, folks, I think that wraps up another mediocre edition of Hit the Books podcast. Thank you all for sticking with us. If you like what you hear, be sure to hit like and subscribe and follow us on your podcast services. Our RSS feed is still waiting to be put up because we're waiting for our URL to become free again so we can reacquire it.
It's coming soon, though.
It will be soon, within a few weeks. And you can always check us out on our social networks. Again, we're on Twitter at at HTBvids, and on Facebook at /HitTheBooks. Again, I'm your host, Chris Holcomb.
And I'm Emery Saunders.
And thank you for watching. See you next week.
Mediocre!